Hello, everybody. It's Adam from New York City. On day 3 of TMS treatment, I thought, I really wanted to play some like chill jazz music in the background, but I can't because my MacBook won't let me pick up desktop audio. I just really wanted like a nice chill vibe so we can all relax too while we just hang out together. Um, I had my third TMS session today. It's a very interesting and actually quite painful experience, and I've also had some very peculiar emotional cognitive shifts while transient. They were rather impactful. We'll talk about that. But how are you guys doing tonight? It's 6:41 Eastern time. Um, Thanks, Moon Man. Appreciate you. Uh, I just thought I'd do a kind of relaxed stream. I just need to cognitively exert myself so I can sleep better tonight. So a little bit selfish. So with the fMRI guided TMS, it's very interesting. So when I go in there, there's a technician who performs it on me, and the first thing they do is they put a cap on my head. It's much like a, I don't know, it's just a cap, and then they put a strap under my chin. Next, they put a tracker device around my head with a, I'm guessing like an infrared light receptor in front. In front of me is kind of this tall tower with a big bar up top that tracks where that is, so it tracks my head motion. The next thing he does is he calibrates the coils. I don't know what that means, but I can see it on the screen that he's calibrating them. He gives me earplugs because it's loud, and then he gives me two big cotton tubes to put in my mouth in between my teeth, because in some regions where they stimulate it, it makes my whole face jerk, like pretty intensely. Like it'll make my whole mouth and face jerk, and my eyes will start watering. So they put those in there so that I don't like break or chip a tooth or anything like that. So, um, what I see on the big screen is a few things. There's multiple quadrants. Well, multiple quadrants. A quadrant would be four. So there's four quadrants. And at least on one of them, I can see my brain. So when he puts the coil and goes to find the target spot, which there's two things that are involved in the target spot. One is the entry point, which was calibrated on day 1. There's an entry point, which is shown as a green dot on the MRI that I'm seeing on the screen. So I can see my brain in real time as he moves it around. I can see my brain, the inside of my brain, which is really weird. There's a green dot that shows the entry point, and then there's a gray line leading to another green dot that's the target. And so he's aligning the TMS, the magnetic coil, so that it penetrates the entry point at the correct angle, goes right through that gray channel and into that green target dot, so we're stimulating the correct area. And so I can see that all on screen. So in real time, as he moves the coil around, I can see my brain, which is very interesting. I've got a little more numb to it over the last few days of seeing it, you know. But when I first saw it, I said it out loud. I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. Because I can literally see the inside of my brain. Um, and then what he does is, so he'll align to a spot, and he'll say 3, 2, 1, and goes ga 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 about 10 times. 10 times. It'll pause. I'll hear 3 beeps from the machine. I think basically give me a heads up it's about to do it again. I'll go beep beep beep, and then ga 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 again. And depending on the area, it can actually be quite painful. Like this spot right here, there's a lot of nerves on the skin, and it's a sensitive area on the skin. It can be really painful. I've adjusted it to it over the last few days, so it's not quite as bad, and we've been ramping up the intensity. But it can really jerk my face around and cause my eyes to water, and it feels like someone's like chiseling at your head and also pulling at your hair at the same time. So it's actually more painful than I expected, but I think I'm slowly adapting to it. And so the goal is how the guy described it to me, and I thought he was talking out his ass actually when I first went in there, and he described how these circuits work and what they're doing. I thought he was talking all fluff, and I was actually starting to get disappointed. I hadn't had my first treatment yet because I thought, oh shit, this is just, I'm getting scammed. And then, I went home, did a bunch of research. I was like, holy shit, this guy's spot on. I just didn't know these things about how the central nervous system functioned. But basically, what he was saying is that you have a default mode network that keeps you alive. When you're asleep, there's a network that's activated that keeps you breathing, right? Brainstem, heartbeat going, basic functioning of the brain to keep you alive. That default mode network goes down when another network initiates. So when you wake up and you're like, I'm going to go take a shower, I'm going to go brush my teeth, the default mode network that is just there to keep you alive goes down, and another network goes up. So that network involved in I'm going to go take a shower gets activated, and you go take a shower, right? But the way he described it to me is that in some circumstances, networks can be entangled in inappropriate ways and cause dysfunction. So for people who have depression, for example, when they first wake up in the morning, they may sit in bed for 1-2 hours. They want to get out of bed. They're trying to get out of bed, but there's a mental block that's keeping them from getting out of bed. And one of the causes, I mean, of course, you can have decreased serotonin, which can be treated with an SSRI, but one of the potential causes can be functional, where your default mode network is highly activated when you're awake when it's not supposed to be. And when you go to activate the I'm going to go take a shower, I'm going to go brush my teeth network, they are inappropriate, and they're correlated, and they're inappropriately interlinked. And so when you go to try to initiate that I'm going to take a shower network, it gets kind of blocked by the default mode network, and you just remain in bed doing nothing. And then he also talked about how that can happen with just different networks overall. So my visual processing network can get involved in inappropriate linked through similar blood flow to those networks in a way that causes, like, maybe an emotional network is connected with my visual processing network in an inappropriate way, and they both get activated, and it just causes malfunction. Anyway, a lot of it was kind of over my head, but it was very interesting because I've never heard anything about this in neuroscience before, and it was new insight to me. And so what they do is, the goal of TMS is to break apart those networks. That's part of it. Part of it is they want to have, basically with depression anyway, have what's called anti-correlation. That's a technical term for it, where the default mode network goes down and the network to complete an activity goes up. But if there's correlation between the two, where the default mode network is up and the trying to do the task is up as well, you won't be able to initiate that task as easily. And so what TMS does is it introduces an electromagnetic field that stimulates neurons to fire in such a way that it starts breaking up those interlinked circuits, so that those circuits can operate more normally, so the default mode network stays low while you initiate a task. That's kind of my general understanding of it. TMS also works in other ways, through neuroplasticity, through breaking up maladaptive neural networks that have formed that are compensatory for my visual processing. For example, other areas of my brain may have tried to take over, and they're maladaptive, so they're not functioning quite properly. And through other means as well. And it's rather complicated. That my brain is fried out while I was talking to him. But it's been a really bizarre experience. So let me try to recall a few things that's happened. So one thing that happened this morning, well, let me talk about yesterday. He targeted the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex through right above my right eyebrow. It'll cross the, whatever that membrane's called, in between the hemispheres, and hit the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is involved with emotional regulation, executive functioning, a lot of different stuff. But it is heavily involved in emotional regulation and trauma. And when he stimulated that area, it felt like all the 3 years of my encephalitic trauma just opened all at once. It was like I was staring over the edge into that open Chernobyl reactor and getting fried by trauma. And it was a really intense experience, and actually shook me pretty bad. I started dissociating when I got home. My vision was flattening and everything, because it was really disturbing. I talked to the doc about it. She says it's totally normal and actually probably a good sign that we're targeting the correct networks. And it was like trauma therapy, but with trauma therapy, like exposes you slowly. This was like all at once. It was like I felt immediately dysphoric, suicidal, and then bam, it was like all my trauma hit me all at once. My brother's calling, but I'm gonna ignore him for now. He can pop into the live stream if he wants to. And so that was really weird. And then I went to sleep, and I slept for 9 hours. This is the last night. I slept for 9 hours straight, completely uninterrupted. I haven't had that in over 3.5 years. And it was deep, restful sleep. I haven't had that in 3.5 years. And I woke up, and the first thing that happened when I woke up was I thought I was 23 years old, living back in my hometown with my sister and brother-in-law, and I thought I was in that bed. I could feel the bed. I thought I heard a lawnmower outside. I thought I was that person. My trauma, everything was gone. I had like taken on the persona of my 23-year-old self and the innocence and all of that was involved with that. And that lasted 5 to 10 seconds. And it wasn't like I was confused. It wasn't like I was sometimes you wake up and you're like, where the fuck am I? And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm in New York City because it's a new place, right? It wasn't like I was confused. It was actually a really calming experience. And then my brain recalibrated and was like, oh yeah, no, you're 29, you're in New York City, you have all this trauma, blah, 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 you're fucked up. And so, but that was a really unique experience. And I've also had another experience after the first session the next morning where I had higher dopamine activity. I could just feel it. I know what dopamine feels like. I've had Adderall and been on Solumedrol, so I know what higher dopamine feels like. And I was able to, and this all sounds very bizarre and like sci-fi like, but it's true. I was able to observe myself from the third person's perspective in a way I've never been able to do before. I've had therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, for 2.5 years or more, and I could suddenly see all my bad thought patterns, behavior patterns, traumatic, how the trauma is affecting my experience in life and all that. And that lasted maybe an hour, and it was weird. I had this great insight into how these things are affecting how I perceive the world around me. So I was able to like separate myself and observe those behaviors and thought patterns and stuff without being those thought patterns and things. So I've had these kind of weird one-off experiences with TMS that I guess is a good sign that it's hitting the right circuits. But yeah, those are a few things that have happened. Obviously, it takes time to build up. So just because I'm having these weird one-off experiences, they're just part of certain networks being stimulated, and over time I should get relief in depression, anxiety, especially PTSD. Those are the main things that TMS is at least very research backed in. And then cognitive deficits and my visual perceptual distortions. So they're also targeting the back of my head, my occipital lobe, where the visual cortex is located, and trying to break up some of the visual distortions. We'll see how effective that is. I have my doubts that it's going to be that effective. I think it's going to be more effective with the depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and maybe the cognitive deficits, but I'll take whatever I can get in the vision department. 5%, 10%, 20% improvement there, no big deal. What I expect at the end of this is to have an overall quality improvement so that I can engage in life normally. It might seem normal when I'm talking to the camera, but like I had to force myself to go to a coffee shop today just to be in a real environment. And watching people engage with each other was very bizarre. Like, I just am not capable of that, or at least it's very unfamiliar to me. And so watching people be totally out of their heads and be able to have a conversation with somebody, there's a couple on a date next to me, was really weird. And it was actually really unsettling. I wanted to leave. But I decided I'm going to sit in this moment. I'm just going to drink a cup of coffee, and I'm just going to allow myself to experience what a normal environment feels like. Although it looks and feels weird, I'm just going to sit and let that experience happen. And then as time went on, I settled into it and I felt more comfortable. But, yeah. So that kind of summarizes everything so far. Tomorrow I have a presentation on my fMRI that'll give full details into all the areas that are malfunctioning, all the areas they're targeting. and then I'll have a more fuller understanding of exactly what's going on. They're really expediting treatment because I'm only here for a month, and so they didn't have the presentation ready ahead of time like they normally do. So they wanted to get the treatment started, and then the presentation would come later, which is going to happen tomorrow. And so I'll get a lot more details tomorrow. But I've done a lot of crying in the past 3 days that I haven't done in the past 3 years. It's been bizarre. Thank you, Jonathan. I wish there was some smooth jazz playing in the background. It pisses me off that I can't do it. If you guys have any questions about it, let me know, and we can always ask AI bots or whatever. But yeah, what else is there about the TMS? So I have like one back-to-back session every day. It lasts 45 minutes, an hour break, and then I have a 1 hour session or 15-minute session, and then I'm done for the day. And I'm so used to, after being encephalitic, where I was curled up in my parents' basement in psychosis, I'm so used to isolation that I tend to just become a recluse. And today I just tried to break that a little bit by just going to a coffee shop. And just practice not isolating. And even that was challenging for me. It's challenging to do the most small tasks, and that involves executive functioning, depression, PTSD, and those are the things they're targeting. Like, even hitting play on a podcast seems like there's a wall between me and even doing that, even though it's such a passive activity. It's such a simple thing, but I can't do it. It seems like the cognitive load would be too much, even if I don't commit to cognitively listening. My brain is very funky. So there's a lot of targets, actually. There's 16. And from what the first doctor told me, who actually was a nuclear physicist working on military weapons that are now being deployed, the I don't know what they're called, but basically the weapon where it shoots a laser and can shoot rockets out of the sky, for like $3.50 per burst. That's what he's working back in the 80s. He's working on that back in the 80s. And it's just now being released, and he's able to talk about it. And I went and looked up his pedigree, and he's a legit dude. He's a professor at the Columbia University. He's a neurophysicist and a medical doctor, and he looks like Einstein. He's bald up to here, and then his hair just goes. But yeah. It's been a very wild and interesting experience so far, and I expect it to kind of normalize a little bit. My brain's just getting tingled, and it's not used to that, and it's hitting weird circuits, and it's activating different feelings and stuff. I think it's going to start settling out, where it's going to feel like just going to my session every day, but then I'll slowly start feeling improvement in anxiety and depression and PTSD, and maybe improvement in vision. They say they're targeting that, and they actually set the bar pretty low for improvement. They're pretty reassuring that they could help with my visual symptoms, but I'm keeping my expectations low in that department. And if I get improvement in depression, anxiety, and psychiatric stuff, it'll help me cope with the visual perceptual disturbances a lot better, because right now my visual perceptual disturbances are very much linked to my trauma, because when I was encephalitic, that's all I saw. The whole world was evil, demonic, perceptually bizarre, and so the sequelae of having visual perceptual distortion is a constant reminder of that. So it makes me feel like I identify with the illness, and so improvement in that area would help, because it would help me feel like I'm not still ill. But if I can also get just improvement in PTSD and depression and anxiety, it'll help me detach from the visual perceptual sequelae in a way that will help me not identify it with it so strongly, and more view it as like a whatever, things look weird, whatever. But I mean, things look really weird. I live in a dream world. It's not DPDR, but it is just a visual processing issue. And they found a target on my occipital lobe. The fMRI looks for, malfunctioning neural networks, and they found a target on my occipital lobe, which they're hitting. So there is possibility of improvement, but I expect it to over depression, anxiety, PTSD, cognitive dysfunction, executive function, visual perceptual disturbances, all that. I expect the distribution to be uneven as far as improvement goes across all those symptoms. But I do expect at the end of this and the month following to be in a place where I can engage with the world better. I can feel more joy and more hope and do things that I normally can't do. Um, and I'll be here until March 11th, so I'm here for quite a while. Yeah, it's interesting science, and I don't fully grasp it, and I hope to get more information with the presentation tomorrow. But it's fucking painful. I keep telling him to turn up the dial. I've had 7, 8 spinal taps, you know? So when he's like, is this too much? I'm like, dude, lay it on me. I'm like, if this is gonna make me feel better, crank up the frequency. And when he does, it fucking hurts, but I'm just like, just crank it up. He told me today, he's like, dude, you're one tough cookie. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's because I literally have had a tube shoved into my jugular vein. And I've had 8 or 9 spinal taps. I've been poked a million times. Like, I have so much medical pain that I've built a tolerance to it, or at least an understanding that this is helping me, so it's okay. Uh, so I guess I am a tough cookie. I'm gonna allow myself to believe that. And yeah. Hi, Cheesecake Fiend. Hey, Adam. I'm a relatively new follower to your health journey. I found you through the other channel and WAP, even though I haven't been around for the whole thing. I can already tell you're incredibly strong and resilient. Seriously, don't forget that. You're a fighter. Thank you. Sometimes I don't recognize that. But then I think, I'm in New York City. I'm doing a very advanced treatment in New York City. I'm still fighting. It's like I'm on autopilot and then I have to stop and realize, no, this is me actually doing it, you know? So I appreciate that. And you're definitely not alone in this. We're all cheering you on and sending you support every step of the way. Lean on us whenever you need it. I appreciate that so much because you guys have supported me. So, I mean, we have like almost 4,500 subscribers to this channel. You guys have supported us through the GoFundMe in the past. And this treatment is very expensive. I'm going into debt for it. That's okay. I am willing to do that temporarily because I expect my income to be relatively high in 2025. So I'll pay it off rather quickly, but I didn't want to wait any longer. It's been 200 days since I first found TMS, and I found TMS. I was diagnosed with encephalitis by an AI bot initially, and so I knew what I had. And then I found TMS through an AI bot. They're like, oh, maybe, they casually mentioned TMS. So I looked into TMS, and there's TMS everywhere. I found it in my local town, Boise. There's general TMS where they put a whole coil on your head and they just blast everywhere at once, It's a one-size-fits-all approach. It took me much longer to find fMRI-guided TMS, where they find actual malfunctioning neural circuits and try to, they target those directly versus that one-size-fits-all approach, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, actually sometimes makes people worse. And it doesn't treat, visual symptoms. So I remember looking up, can it affect the occipital lobe and visual symptoms? And, in studies, it actually has shown that it can. TMS has improved visual neglect, where people with strokes or traumatic brain injuries neglect one side of their vision, 66% return to baseline, where they restored vision. They didn't have anything wrong with their eye, their brain just wasn't processing it. And then on healthy subjects, it also improved the ability to track objects and some other visual metrics I forget. And that was just with standard TMS, but this is very targeted. We're hitting things that are actually malfunctioning that were found on the fMRI. And I'm learning a lot about myself through this. I'm learning to not cling on to this is going to be perfect, this is going to resolve everything, but to instead just be along for the ride and just take things as they come. And I know I'll be better off after this, and that's all that matters. I'm not going to be where I was before this. I'm going to be in a better place, and if I'm in a better place, that's okay. So I've changed my mindset from I want everything to be perfect to it's okay if I just feel better and can then interact with the world a little bit more, have less depression, less anxiety, so I can go out and do things, more joy interacting with people. I have basically anhedonia when it comes to interacting with people. Um, so if I can get, across the board some improvement, and maybe some areas a lot of improvement, others not so much, it's going to be a distribution, um, an uneven distribution. That's fine. I'll take whatever I can get. And perhaps the visual perceptual disturbances are perhaps the least studied across all of the possible treatment applications for TMS. So it's considered experimental. There are studies such as the one I talked about, visual neglect, um, and there's studies on people with traumatic brain injury. So it's not completely unfounded. It's just there's not a lot of research out there. For depression and anxiety, TMS is approved by the FDA, and it treats OCD and stuff like that. But for neurological symptoms, it's studied, but there's not a lot of research out there. So the probabilities of success are a little unclear. They did say that there was one patient they had who had a stroke, and they treated that area. She lost all her peripheral vision, and over time, she regained a little by little, and she got all her peripheral vision back, mostly, and she had lost her central vision to a certain degree, and she regained that completely. So, it depends on how my brain has been affected. We don't know how my brains have been affected or why exactly I'm having this visual perceptual disturbances, and so there's variability in how TMS will affect that. But for depression, anxiety, PTSD, those kind of things, those are much more well established. And if those things can improve, it's going to help me cope with my visual perceptual disturbances much better and allow me to engage in life in a much more meaningful way. Of course, I would love to see the world how everybody else sees it. I don't want to live in dreamland forever. But if I'm not depressed, am I really going to care? If I'm not anxious, is it going to really make me ruminate, Maybe I'll find it more funny or whatever, not so serious and heavy. So I'll take what I can get. Yeah, how are you guys doing tonight? Tell me what you're up to. I'm doing this because I'm bored and I need to exert myself cognitively because I need to sleep well, and I took a nap earlier, so I need to sleep well. Every time I wake up from a nap, I have almost a panic attack. But today was the first time I woke up with the same amount of anxiety, but I wasn't hyperventilating. So I don't know if that's a good sign or not. It's very early on in treatment. I mean, real improvement comes in weeks. But there's been little subtle signs of we're hitting the right networks, Like the fact that I woke up and wasn't hyperventilating. Usually when I wake up from a nap, I'm like, like that, like as I'm basically in a panic attack mode. I maybe have a high cortisol spike or whatever, or fight or flight is activated. The bro scientist, my brother. Hey, no rush, man, but you, me, and our bud have a date with Arcane. What time? Like right now? We're gonna watch Arcane with a friend of ours. Okay, I'll be done here in a little bit. Just give me a little bit of time. I just want to hang out for a bit and talk and whatever. This is my brother Eric, who has all the same symptoms. He's back in Boise taking care of my puppy Penny and our big old grumpy dog Watson, and he's doing it very well. Love you, bro. I'll talk to you very soon when we watch Arcane. But Eric has all pretty much the same symptoms as me, or sequelae, I guess you'd call them. And if this works effectively, I'm shipping him straight off to New York City to get the same treatment. There's no fucking way that I get improvement and I'm going to let Eric just sit in suffering. I'm going to ship him off and I'll figure some way to pay for it. Yeah. Also, if you haven't watched Arcane, you need to fucking watch it. It's really good. Do you want to see my cool really basic effects I have here. Check it out. I have a countdown timer. Look at that. Counts down. I play my outro that's going to play really loud music. That's about it. It just has a transition. That's it. Really basic. I'm just using a Mac. I'll have my computer here soon. Also, I got access to Futures on Robinhood. So, thank you, Eric. It is really incredible, and it shows my I'm very advanced. I'm an advanced streamer. I got access to futures on Robinhood, so we'll be talking about that soon, so people don't destroy their portfolios. Also, I'm part of this really cool program called Autopilot. I'm not going to shill it to you guys because this is the health channel, but I do just want to show you how cool it is. So hopefully you can see my Mac screen here without it going to desktop. Sometimes it shows my desktop. So basically people can link their brokerages to me. If I go to overview, I can see how many assets I have under management. I have almost $200,000 under management that I'm basically managing for people. I have 29 people actively subscribed, 53 people. Some people are using it for free, where it doesn't actively make their trades when I make a trade on their, or adjust the percentages on the portal here. It just copies my initial portfolio. It doesn't make the trades for them. But I thought that's really cool. I'm like my own little hedge fund manager, and it's really cool to see that. I can't wait for this to hit 1 million. It's gonna be crazy. But I feel very protective and responsible for the people that are involved with this, because I want to make sure that they don't lose their money. So I'm gonna do the best I can. Here, if you want to sign up or take a look or check it out or whatever, I have a button here. I literally just push it. Boom. Oh, it doesn't send to the right. It doesn't send to the right channel. Hold on. 1 second. Can I add new? Hold on. Oh shit! I fucked up. I want to share the link. Give me just a second. God damn it. Add new. Do my account. I'm working on a very slow Mac. Okay, there you go. Okay, continue. Okay, it's been added. So now, if I go here, here, here. Okay. Okay, now it should work. Let me see if it works. Bam. There you go. Sorry, I had to switch it over to this YouTube account. Cheesecake Fiend, sorry I haven't watched your other videos of your health journey yet. I plan to. What are some of the symptoms you deal with that bother you the most? So, I would say there's a lot. If I had to list it in a tier progression, worst to not as bad, it would be anxiety, which is really saying something, because my visual perceptual disturbances, where things look like I'm on a hallucinogen without the psychoactive effects, is very severe, but anxiety is very high. So I'd put anxiety, visual perceptual disturbances, depression, or PTSD. I'd mix those two kind of together, and then cognitive dysfunction. And then I have like tremors and stuff. Not worried about it. They're very minor. Sometimes when I frown, you can see my lips like quiver a little bit. I can't do, like, if I try to alternate fingers, my hands, like if I try to do pinky, middle finger, ring finger, first finger, it's like over and over. I can't do it, so I've lost function in that hand. This hand's a little bit better, still kind of twitchy, but I can actually do it on this hand. Most of my deficits have always been on my right side, so when I was encephalitic, I had numbness behind the skull and tingling right here. My hands went numb. I lost coordination with my fingers and hand, and my tongue went numb and started deviating to the right. So it's all localized to the right side. And if you look on my fMRI, you can see all the targets, which are a bunch of little dots on my MRI, and they're all on my left side, which makes sense because that controls the right side of the body. So because I have had all those neurological symptoms on my right side, it's not surprising that there's a lot of targets that are on the left side of my brain. Yeah, so I was encephalitic I had autoimmune encephalitis for 3 years, a little over 3 years. I had solumedrol, rituximab, IVIG, plasma exchange, and Cytoxin. Cytoxin's chemotherapy, very immunosuppressive, which ultimately put me in remission. But I still am dealing with these things called sequelae, which are basically symptoms, but when you don't have disease activity, they're just leftover things. So that's what I'm treating with TMS, right? I don't have disease activity. I'm not encephalitic anymore. My brain's not inflamed anymore. But there are still leftover issues that I'm treating with TMS. And, yeah. So, yeah, anxiety is incredibly intense. And then it goes visual disturbances. If I could see things like a normal person, that might actually help anxiety. Because things look so bizarre. I have after images, visual snow, things look dreamlike and very perceptually weird in ways that I can't explain. It's been so frustrating when docs ask me, like, what do I look like? What do you see? It's like, I can't explain to you, because it's like your brain as a human has evolved to process the world in a certain way, and we take that for granted, and that's like default. Mine's shifted to a different perception of how I see things. It's the same idea. It's almost like someone who's, it's like going from what you see now to a mantis shrimp who sees a wider range of UV light. You can't understand it because you've never seen those colors before. And it's the same idea. I can't explain it. Everything's all there. It just looks very bizarre. So that is always a frustrating question, and that was a question that was first asked when I went into the clinic. Is like, the doc asked, "What do I look like to you?" And I was like, "I can't explain it. You look bizarre, but I cannot explain how," which is weird and incredibly frustrating. Yeah. Oh man, I wish there was smooth jazz playing. I was listening to some smooth jazz earlier. It was very nice. I wish I could just play it in the background. Oh, what else is there? So I'll be here all the way until March 11th. My little puppy Penny's gonna be growing up without me, but Eric's taking good care of her. And then we'll do an fMRI after, and we'll compare the two to see how much I've improved in areas that can use further improvement. But I'm gonna be out of cash, so it's gonna be mostly for the. I told her I can't pay for that follow-up fMRI, and she said, "Okay, I'll talk to the medical director. Let's get it covered." I was like, "Thank you," but like, if it's going to show improvement, but there's probably going to be some areas where they're like, we could continue doing the therapy. I'm like, I can't afford it. I got a puppy at home. I can't stay in New York forever. Maybe I can come back later and we can address it, but let's just address what we can and get improvement where we can over a month. And it's very accelerated treatment. People don't get 3 sessions in a day. They get 1 session a day, maybe. Which would last 15 minutes. I get like a total of an hour of it. Just hit bam, 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 bam. Over here, bam, 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 bam. Right here, hitting, my emotional networks. Back here, hitting my visual cortex. Over here, hitting other networks. So, yeah, it's actually, again, I say, surprisingly painful. I'm slowly adapting to it, but at first I was like, holy fucking shit. Like, he counts down, and it's like 3, 2, 1, and it's like, I'm scared because it's like, it hurts. And I have a pretty good pain tolerance, but that is pretty painful. But I still tell him to crank it up because I'm like, let's get to the therapeutic level. The more the better, baby. I don't, I'd rather see improvement and deal with pain than be a pussy and be like, oh my gosh, I'm uncomfortable, which I feel like a lot of people probably do. And that's probably why he said you're one tough cookie, because most people are probably like, that's too much. Well, I'm just like, crank it, It's like that guy with Salem witch trials or whatever, who they're piling rocks on him as a way of torture, and he just said more weight because he's a fucking badass, and that's how he died. But that was a dramatic example, but that's what I'm doing. I'm saying more weight. Just keep adding to it. I don't give a shit. I just want to get better. Ugh. Also, I have autonomic dysfunction where I sweat like crazy. Very annoying. I have to wear like pullovers because I just pit out no matter what I'm doing. Alright, guys. That'll do it for today, I think, unless you guys have any questions or anything you want to talk about. Because I'm going to watch Arcane with a friend of ours. And if you haven't watched that show, I highly recommend it. Yeah, it's intense, and I am very dissociated from my trauma and the baggage, and sometimes it becomes clear to me what I'm experiencing and how bizarre it is, and it scares the shit out of me, and I just go back into tank mode because I never expected anything like this to happen. It's completely derailed my life, dude. Crazy. But I expect improvement. I expect to, this shit happens. It's wasn't happen didn't happen for any particular reason. It just happened, and all I can do is do my best, and part of doing my best is getting this treatment here in New York City. And with that said, guys, I'm gonna call it quits here. Have a lovely evening. I'll talk to all you guys soon, and I'll keep you updated on how TMS goes, especially when I start seeing some improvements, or if I have any other weird emotional cognitive shifts like I described earlier in this video. I'll keep you posted. Alright, adios. I'll show you my outro video so you guys can vibe for a minute. Sound good? Alright, love you guys. Peace out.